4,000 children die each day because of the ingestion of filthy water. More than 4 out of every 10 people do not have access to decent water supply. The World Health Organization has found that more than 3.4 million people die each year because of water-related diseases, making water the #1 causer of diseases as well as deaths around the world. Let us look at this. This is water, collected from a local river of Amauti, which is only 3 kilometers away from my school. This water is of extremely low quality. It is filled with microorganisms that cause diseases such as cholera, malaria, diphtheria, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, this is simply not acceptable. Something has to be done because obviously the government isn't doing a good enough job. Therefore, we believe that privatization is our only solution. Thank you.
Here is no water, but only rock. Rock and no water and a sandy road. The road winding above among the mountains, which are mountains of rock without water. If there were water, we should stop and drink. Amongst the rock, one cannot stop or think. Sweat is dry and feet are in the sand. If there were only water amongst the rock. Dead mountain mouth of carious teeth that cannot spit. Here one can neither stand, nor lie, nor sit. There is not even silence in the mountains, but dry sterile thunder without rain. Here is not even solitude in the mountains, but red sullen faces sneer and snarl. From doors of mud-cracked houses, if there were water and no rock, if there were rock and also water, and water, a spring, a pool amongst the rock, if there were the sound of water only, not the cicada, and dry grass singing, but sound of water over a rock.
One of the biggest development challenges for the global community is getting clean and adequate sanitation facilities to the billion-plus people around the world, around developing nations that desperately need it. Water, the most precious gift. You and I open our taps uncontrollably. Do we spare thought for those that don't have proper water and sanitation? There are about 1.1 billion people around the world that don't have the facilities that you and I have. As young people, we need to take a proactive approach in helping to curb this problem. You and I can do simple things by not letting our taps run uncontrollably. We can help in this national crisis.
Did you know that 1.1 billion people in the world don't have access to water? That's a lot of people, almost 18% of the world population. In the 20th century, the demand for water has doubled. So we see that it's evident that there is a world water crisis. It is estimated that South Africa could run out of its fresh water resources in 17 years' time. So, if in 17 years' time you want to open a tap and you want clean, accessible, drinkable water to run out of that tap, and if you want your children and your children's children to have access to water, then you need to start saving water today. Thank you. I'm Jolene Dilip, Affirmative 1. Privatization is a new form of apartheid. Whilst apartheid aims to separate the blacks from the whites, privatization aims to separate the rich from the poor. Only the rich can afford to pay the prices of a privatization policy, while the poor people's rights to water are treated as a commodity. Once the government adopts a privatization policy and later finds out that it's not working, which quite often happens, there's a large economic cost to bear, and this adds a greater burden to the government. The government has an inherent responsibility because of its social contract to its people to prevent privatization, which will only make an already poor nation poorer.
I'm Justina Chetty, -1. Should water be national property? No, we believe that government is unable to provide water to its citizens effectively, efficiently. Our policy is that government needs to shift responsibility to private companies. Many countries have turned to the private sector and multinational companies for helping provide their thirsty citizens with water. Privatization can mean selling water supply and treatment systems to private owners, long-term leases of water systems, or contracts to manage public water systems. In other words, the usual agreement is a long-term lease.
I'm Renita, Affirmative 2. You don't need to be a rocket scientist in order to know that businesses are profit-driven entities. What this simply means is that they will do anything possible if it will help them realize a profit at the end of the day, even when it comes to distributing a natural and sacred resource such as water. We need to consider the Cochabamba riots that occurred in the year 2000. Bolivia signed over their rights to distribute water to a multinational corporation known as Agas de Tunari. What the multinational then did was lower the standard of water that it distributed, and it increased the price of the water by over 35%.
I am Tiffany Chetty, -2. Water is a fundamental resource. It is our central to life and it feeds our nation. Therefore, it is extremely important that every citizen is provided with sufficient water supply. We believe that thus far the government has failed to fulfill its moral obligation, that of providing and looking after the well-being of its citizens. We want the government to allow private sectors equal opportunity and benefits. Example, allowing them small, local water companies to supply water. They are the best candidates to expand water access to areas in which the government does not help. We believe it's time for a change. Let us not dwell on our past, but focus on our future.
I will welcome you, and please do enjoy the program.
People that we are expecting that's going to
It's organized by the people.
we simply don't feel that it's moral for our government to transfer this responsibility into the hands of private companies. We feel that water is too important a right to be put into the hands of private companies that have failed other countries all over the world, that have failed in the past. We believe that they can also fail South Africa in the future.
Many countries have turned to the private sector and multinational companies for help in providing their thirsty, poor citizens with water.
Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist in order to know that businesses are profit-driven entities. What this simply means is that they will do anything possible in order if it will help them realize a profit at the end of the day, even when it comes to distributing a sacred and natural resource such as water.
It is time to give private companies equal benefits and opportunities. Privatization of water supplies in many places around the world have been implemented and have been successful.
Why should consumers then be given the incentive to waste water rather than save it?
If privatization is implemented, then people will start to save water. So how then can we trust that a privatization policy is going to work?
Privatization working is very much real. We find that government has other problems to deal with.
Yeah, I believe that the government is efficient. They have provided.
Then people are unable to pay.
The government is providing 6 kiloliters of water free.
We do give 60 kiloliters of water.
Government should continue.
Indeed, government succeeds in terms of doing its own duty.
So why don't government and privatization work together hand in hand in order to give other people better water and better facilities? Thank you. That I hear is that we want you to assist us in raising money for us to buy a water tank so that we could give another school chance to have water access.